Hi, everyone. My name is Divya. If you are new here and if you're here for Welcome Week, I'm so excited that you decided to join class today. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm joining today from Sacramento. I need to learn the land acknowledgement. I say this every week, and it's completely on me for missing on that every single week. So I'm going to do that today after class. I teach asana with Tejal yoga on Thursday evenings, and I sort of alternate in style every week. So this week it coincided really well with Welcome Week. The style that we'll be doing today is very meditative, very slow, deeper, longer holds with some postures that will, I think, permeate the layers of our tissues and hopefully get into some of that juicy stuff. So that's the objective today. Is I just want to simplify the movement, focus on alignment a little bit in the beginning so that as we start to flow, as much as we'll be flowing with, the meditative movement, we can sort of, in the most mindful way possible, let our body go into autopilot so that we can spend more time with our soul, with our breath, and just start to lose the grip that the mind has over the rest of us. That's the goal for today. And to also introduce anyone here who's newer to asana or practice to some helpful cues that will help you protect yourself physically and also help enhance your practice using other limbs of yoga, such as pranayama and dhyana, which is sort of focus and concentration. So that will be what we'll focus on today. And the other weeks, so I kind of go back and forth, I do a bit more dynamic movement that is a little bit more heat building. It gets us more into a flow where we can challenge and push our stamina, where we're learning new compound movements that draw from Indian martial arts and wrestling techniques as well, which share a lot of common, I guess they're in the same movement family as yoga. So there's a lot of shared movement that we can kind of learn from to help enhance our practice. That being said, I'm really excited to introduce anyone new to my style of teaching. I make corny jokes. I frequently lean on dad jokes for my source of comedy. So if that does not suit you, that's too bad. We'll start on our mats today. So go ahead and get comfortable. I'm going to start with some seated pranayama. So you can join along with me. I'm going to shift into our class view. If you have any questions throughout class, feel free to just put it in the chat. So I'll see the notification and come up, or you can also just unmute yourself and catch my attention if I'm like not responding in a timely manner. So yeah. All right. So in yoga, there's this concept of sthira and sukha. Sukha being easeful and sthira being effortful, or something that requires steadiness, which is a bit more effortful. So today's practice will be a little bit, it's going to incorporate both. I feel like any asana practice incorporates both, but it's sort of like where your awareness is more focused. So my awareness today will be focused on sukha in the mind and steadiness, sthira, in the body. So simplifying movement, just finding a singular point of focus, using things like our drishti, our gaze, using our bandhas, which are inner muscular controls to help us steady the posture and then draw our attention into the mind. That's going to be the way that I practice sthira today. So I'm going to start with a very sukha-inducing posture, sukhasana, easy pose, where you just cross your ankles here at your seat, slightly scoot your seat forward so that your knees come out to the sides. And this is a really great hip opener as well. And from here, ground down through your root, really let your seat get very heavy. Imagine that you're attaching or gluing yourself down to the earth. And another way to sort of enhance this heaviness is to start from the crown of the head. And as your awareness comes down the body, release any muscular grips that you have. So if you have any tension up in your neck, if you feel like you're even micro holds, like having your shoulders slightly up by the ears, drop them on your exhale. If you're holding your abdominal walls in on your exhale, let that go too. If you're slightly holding your knees up, let that go too. And if your knees feel like they are, or your hips or knees feel like they're straining in this pose and you can't really release because the weight is uncomfortable, maybe you can ball up your wrists and have them here. If you have blocks, that's a great idea. Roll up a pair of socks, strap, towel, anything that can kind of give you that support in your knees so that your muscles can relax. From here, as your root has gotten nice and heavy, now start to draw the spine up, almost like you're pulling your ribs up and away from the hip joint as much as possible. We can't actually separate our body in half. Imagine how productive we'd be if we could do that, 2 places at once. That was a very low hanging fruit. So just draw the ribs first into the body, back towards the spinal cage, and from there now lift up. Almost like your rib cage is becoming weightless. From here, roll the shoulders down away from the ears and try to draw the back of your skull up. So you're lengthening the cervical spine here, which is the back of the neck. Try to draw that up. And when you do that, your chin might naturally come down a little bit into the chest. That's okay. That's actually what we're going for here. And I'll explain that in a minute. So try to envision that the base of your skull is drawing up so that the full length of your spine is now extended. When we have our head tilted back, we're actually contracting down on the back of the spine, which puts a little bit of tension there as well. So try to release that. And coming back to the chin, last thing I want us to do is slightly tuck the chin into the chest. And while you're doing that, lift the chest up, almost like you're puffing it up a little bit towards the chin. So they may not actually touch. What we're doing here is we're activating our Jalandhara Bandha, which is the chin bind or the chin lock. For anyone who's new, bandhas are a term in yoga that describe energetic and physical locks within the body that allow us to, one, protect ourselves as we're going through asana, but they also have energetic purpose. So different bandhas activate chakras in the body, which are electromagnetic centers of energy. And there are 7 main ones within our physical body. So by doing this, we're actually able to protect our Vishuddha chakra, and we're actually sealing off energy in the chakras that are associated with higher consciousness, which are our Vishuddha chakra, our throat chakra, our Ajna chakra, which is our third eye chakra here, and the Sahasrara chakra, which is the crown chakra up at the top of our head. So Jalandhara Bandha kind of seals energy off in this section of the body so that we can sink into a deeper meditative state. So these are, this is the sort of process that I go through when I'm setting myself up for meditation or for pranayama. They kind of go hand in hand. So definitely use this as a checklist if you like. So now that we're all set up, let's go ahead and seal the lips. Let your gaze fall down towards the ground. You don't have to close your eyes, but see if you can focus on one spot. So we're starting to practice our drishti, which is our gaze point, without moving the body. We're just practicing the vision portion. Again, we're simplifying today. So sealing the lips, start to draw the breath in deeply through the nostrils, sipping it in slowly with control, and keep your eyes fixed on your drishti point. And as you're inhaling and exhaling, try to make the force of the breath even, controlled, and smooth, both on the way in and back on the way out. It doesn't matter if your inhales and exhales are 1 second long each, 2 seconds, 5 seconds. Don't worry about the length. Focus on the quality of the breath for now. Let's do one more like that. And at the bottom of that last exhale, keep exhaling, keep pushing the air out of the system. And when you do that, you're going to start engaging through your core muscles here, through your abdominal wall. And as you pull your navel back in towards the spine, I want you to now also try to lift the navel, not only back, but up towards the back of the rib cage up here. So it's going backwards this way and up this way slightly. And this is activating your Uddiyana Bandha or your abdominal bind. And this tactic is really good for protecting your lower back in asana, such as downward facing dog, or any time your back might be flexed. But it's also a really good sort of control to use when you're doing breath work, because it lets you exhale even more fully and push all the toxic, or not toxic, stale air out of the system. So on our next inhale, we're going to start sipping in the breath for 4 counts. We'll hold at the top for 4, and then we're going to exhale for 4. So I'm intentionally lengthening the breath now. So based on your own capabilities, calibrate as you need to. Not everyone's going to be the same. Just try to extend the breath on the way in and extend the breath on the way out as well. So let's start with an inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 4, 3, 2, 1. Now exhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold at the bottom. 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 2, 3, 1. 2, 3, 1. Yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh, I can count. Okay, so we're going to translate this now into, this is a box breathing technique, which is going to help us regulate the body, also taps into the nervous system to start activating our psychosomatic sort of system within the body and start calming down any nerves, heightened energy, anxiety. And we'll move into our first mudra. And mudra are basically hand postures, like hand asana for your hand. Every element or every finger in our body corresponds to an element within the body that we can also see in the world around us. So I forget this every time. Let's hope I get this right. The thumb corresponds to fire. The index finger corresponds to air, I think. Middle finger corresponds to space. Ring finger corresponds to earth, and pinky finger corresponds to water. So as we're doing different mudra, we are tapping into reflexology in the body and connecting the finger with those elements in the body to have some sort of result. So today we're going to be taking Vishnu Mudra, and to do so, you're going to first start with your hand open out wide, tuck your pointer and your middle finger into the body so that your thumb, your ring, and pinky fingers are all extended out wide. So go ahead and plug your right nostril with the thumb so that you're leaving your left nostril open. We're going to take in the breath. And also one more thing I'll say, Nadi Shodhana, which is the name of this pranayama, activates 2 main energetic channels in the body known as the Ida and the Pingala nadis. So there is a powerful energetic channel called the Kundalini channel that goes through the center of our body. And it contains a lot of our life force. And these other 2 channels, the Ida, which goes along the left, and the Pingala, which goes along the right, are also powerful channels that sort of wrap in this DNA strand style kind of pattern around the central channel. And they correspond to the moon. The Ida corresponds to the moon or the feminine side, and Pingala Nadi corresponds to solar energy, so the sun. And doing Nadi Shodhana actually activates both of these channels. It specifically draws prana through these channels, prana being our life force. And it brings these things, brings these energies into balance within the body. So if one is a little bit out of balance one day, doing this practice sort of recenters us, which is a really great way to set yourself up for meditation. So let's go ahead and plug the right nostril with the thumb, leaving your other 2 fingers lengthened. So we're gonna inhale here for 4, 3, 2, 1. Plug the left nostril, hold 4, 3, 2, 1. Now open the right nostril, exhale here, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 3, 2, 1. And we'll inhale again through the right hand side, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold at the top, 3, 2, 1. Exhale left, 3, 2, 1. So I'm going to stop talking for a minute so you can actually practice in peace. Let's try to go for 3 rounds on our own cycle. Once inhaling into the towards the right, and then inhaling back to the left counts as one cycle all in itself. So let's try to go through that 3 times. And as you're going through this practice, just take note of the difference in the quality of air as you're breathing in through the left nostril versus through the right nostril. It will be slightly different because our body is wired slightly different on both sides. So one side might feel a bit cooler, one side might feel a bit warmer or hotter. One stream of air might feel a bit more smooth or gentle, and one might feel more forceful and powerful. So just take note of that, things like temperature, force. Um, you can even start to, if you're really getting into it, visualize the flow of air as well, feeling like if the channel is wider or narrower on one side versus the other. Just small ways for us to start to tap into that mindfulness as we're practicing our breathing. So go ahead and complete your last breath. And when you're done, we're going to start moving into some asana as well. So you can keep your legs as they are. Continue to keep your lips sealed, but this time as we breathe in through the nose, we're going to start activating our ujjayi breath, which is our victorious breath. And to do this, just flatten your tongue to the roof of your mouth such that the back of your throat is now sealed off. The way you'll notice that you're doing this right is as you inhale, instead of just sounding or feeling like a more surface level breath that you can feel passing through your nose, the air is going to actually kind of move down to the back of your throat and create a deeper oceanic sound. And you'll start to feel some heat generate towards the back of the throat. Sounds a bit like this. So it kind of sounds a bit like filling up a balloon, actually, that kind of deeper, rich sound. And as you're exhaling with Ujjayi breath, you can once again engage through your Uddiyana Bandha here to push all the air out and also lengthen the breath. And Ujjayi breath has a lot of powerful benefits. The top ones being that it generates heat in the body, which is really great for detoxifying. And also the nature of the breath, it's able to permeate deeper into our tissues and draw toxins out in combination with that heat. So it's a really great one to practice in the morning on an empty stomach. And also a great one to practice when you're doing asana that is more getting into the tissue. So if we're doing things like pigeon pose, we'll re-engage our Ujjayi breath there today. So starting with your hands on your knees, have your palms open out towards the ceiling. On our inhale, we'll draw our hands out to the side, matching it with our inhale until our hands touch at the top. On our exhale, we're going to twist to the left. So right hand goes to the front, left hand goes behind the body. Gently rest on your fingertips. As you exhale, twist over your left shoulder, looking behind you. Keep the neck sitting up nice and tall. Keep the entire spinal column actually sitting up nice and tall. And use your Uddiyana Bandha here to engage through the core, protecting the back as you twist even deeper. At the bottom of your exhale, go ahead and start to look forward. Inhale, lift the arms back up to the center. Exhale, let's twist over to the right now. So left hand comes to the front, right hand goes behind the body, just barely resting on the fingertips here. The core is doing more of the work. Exhale, twist over your right shoulder. Inhale, back to center. Exhale, twist left. Inhale, center. Exhale, twist right. Inhale, center. Exhale, left. Inhale, center. Exhale, right. Inhale, center. Exhale, release the hands down to the side. Go ahead and come onto your hands and knees. for a tabletop position known as Parmasana. So you want your hands directly under the shoulders, knees directly underneath the hip, release down to the tops of the feet. So I'm going to walk you through the bandhas, a few more bandhas this time, just to help you protect yourself in this kind of less weight-bearing pose that you can, then use these bandhas in other postures as well. So starting with the hands, lean back slightly on your wrist joint, pick up all your fingers off the mat, stretch them out, and then gently start to lay them back down on the mat, pressing the finger pads in as you go. So once the entire surface of your hand is down on the mat, try to lean forward slightly so that once again the weight's off of the wrist joint, and now grip the mat firmly underneath your finger pads so that you are almost doming through the center of the palm here, getting a little bit of a tenting effect. So this is known as Hasta Bandha, or hand bind, and the best way I can describe it is that it teaches your hands to act like your feet. It activates muscles through the entire hand that we typically don't use because we don't need to. Our hands don't need to bear weight because of the way that we evolutionarily have become. So this is kind of just re-engaging those muscles in our hands that are sort of neglected. And it's a great way to protect the wrist in any weight-bearing posture, such as Parmasana like this, downward facing dog, Chaturanga Dandasana, anywhere that we're putting our body weight, even half our body weight on our hands, you can use this bandha. Moving up, we've sort of talked to the chin bind, so go ahead and tuck the chin into the chest slightly. You'll feel a lengthening through the back of the neck here. We've done this one already. And then finally, pull the belly button once again back into the spine here, engaging through your Uddiyana Bandha. And from here, let's start moving into Bithilasana Majjhadyasana, which is cow and cat flow. So on our inhale, turn the tailbone up towards the ceiling, drop the belly, pinch the shoulder blades in together, push the mat away with the hands, and lift your gaze up. Bithilasana cow pose. From here, turn the chin back into the chest, push the mat away, separating the shoulder blades. They'll kind of naturally come out to the sides of the arms here, which is also another, having our shoulders come out this way, it starts to grip the biceps and the triceps, which pulls the weight off of our wrist joint. Another great way to relieve that pressure. Let's continue by pulling the belly button back into the spine and start rounding the spine up to the ceiling like there's a string attached to it. And finally, tuck the tailbone into the body, pushing firmly into the tops of your feet for cat pose Majjhadyasana. It's important to articulate the movements when you're first learning these postures so you know everything that's involved in doing it correctly. So once you know, you can start flowing a little bit more. So on your inhale, start with the tailbone, drop the belly, shoulder blades in, gaze up, exhale, chin to chest, shoulder blades separate, belly button to spine, tuck the tailbone. Let's flow now. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Last time, inhale. Exhale. Bring your knees as wide as the mat and sink the hips back, trying to stretch your spine as you go. The closer your chest gets down to the ground, go ahead and walk your fingertips forward to stretch the hands fully, bringing as much extension through the spine as possible. If you want to bring your knees even wider to give your hips more room to sink back, go ahead and do so. And finally, rest down on your chin or your forehead, whatever feels comfortable. And let's hold here in Balasana for just a few breaths to bring down the heart rate, ground a little bit more. Again, the objective today is to not increase our heart rate, but to regulate and actually kind of calm it down a little bit. So anytime that you feel like you're getting activated, come back to the breath exercise that we did at the very beginning, where we are matching the consistency, the quality, and the length of our inhales and exhales. Do that for a few cycles until you feel a bit more steady. One more inhale. And on your exhale, come up onto your hands, Push the hips up into the air for downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. So we've already walked through a lot of the bandhas here. So Hasta Bandha, pushing the mat away. One more thing you can do here to protect your wrists is to wrap your elbows down towards the mat and then in towards the body. So it's very easy to kind of have your elbows come out to the side here, which immediately loses a lot of the capability of the shoulders and puts more weight on the wrist. So instead of having your elbows point to the sides, pull them into the body. So it's almost like your elbows are facing down to the mat. And then push the mat away and you'll feel your shoulder blades activate here, which is really good to take the pressure off the hands. Tuck the chin into the chest to release the cervical spine. Pull the belly button. It's a little bit easier to understand the motion I talked about with the belly button here, where it's not just back towards the spine, but back and up towards the back of the rib cage. So if I was wearing a tighter shirt, you would see that my belly is kind of hollowing out here because of that particular dual motion. And lastly, direct your gaze down between the feet towards the knees or even towards the belly button. Let's hold here for one more breath. And exhale. Inhale, gaze forward between the hands. Exhale, take wide steps up to the front of the mat. Bend the knees generously so that the belly hangs on the thighs. Grab opposite elbows. Release the top of your head down towards the mat so that the full length of the spine is now tractioning down with the added weight of the head. And just swing back and forth to help your body release any tension it might be holding on to still. It takes a lot of convincing to tell the body to really let go. You have to really cajole and love it into trusting us sometimes, which I'm sure is some kind of evolutionary protection mechanism, always stay on guard, but you're safe here. You're safe with yourself. Nothing's going to happen. Use your breath to help release as well. You can use deep exhales as you swing side to side, taking inhales on your sort of transition when you're coming back to center, and then exhale, swing to the other side. Maybe even envision yourself like a grandfather clock with the arms of the clock swinging back and forth. I guess if it's swinging back and forth, it's a broken clock, but we're not broken, we're whole. Terrible analogy. And finally, come to a place of stillness. Crown of the head back between the feet. Release the hands down to the mat. And now slowly keeping your belly button glued into the spine, start to roll the spine up. Fix your gaze between your knees. Keep it pointing down as you lift up to standing. Mountain pose Tadasana. Look at that, we're standing again. So last bandha I'm going to talk about for now, actually for today, is Pada Bandha, or the foot bind, which is arguably one of my favorite bandhas because I think it is just so simple yet undervalued. So there's a big difference between simply standing and truly gripping the floor and being an active participant in your, I guess, sort of challenge to gravity, which is really what this is. So the story of Tadasana helps a lot in this posture. So Tadasana sort of refers to Mount Kailash, which is a mountain in Western Tibet. And it is associated with the place where Lord Shiva, who is known as the first yogi, a prominent deity in Hinduism, it's where he sort of achieved his enlightenment. So it's said that at the base of this mountain, there are two lakes, one that's shaped like a sun and one like a moon, if that sounds familiar. So it's said that the mountain draws its energy up from these lakes, up through the peak of the mountain. So if we translate that to our stance here, when we activate through Pada Bandha using both of our feet, and we draw that energy up through the body, we're giving ourselves that powerful, unshakable stance that allows us to grow into spiritual ascension, into enlightenment. Of course, that might not happen in the next 30 minutes, but it's nice to know that it could. So to activate Pada Baddha, lean back on your heels, just like we did on our wrist joint. You can even kind of mimic the movement with your hand if that helps. Lean back on the balls of the, not on the balls, the heels of the foot, so that all your toes are peeled off. And from here, widen the base of your feet by fanning out your toes wide, and then gently start to lay them down at the mat, one toe at a time, starting from your outermost toes, moving inwards. And once the full surface of your foot is on the mat, now grip underneath it, just like we did with our fingertips. So press the pads of your toes into the mat, almost like you're sucking the mat into the sole of your foot. Now, what you'll notice when you do this, your kneecaps will lift up, your thigh muscles will activate and pull up into the hip sockets, which will actually take it'll kind of take some weight off your feet, but actually you're gripping the earth more. So your stance is becoming more solidified. And if you release Pada Bandha and someone were to come and poke you, you might shake. But if you activate Pada Bandha, you really cannot be moved unless there's a lot of force happening. So definitely an excellent bandha to keep in mind when you're doing any kind of balance posture, when you're on one leg, when your one leg's back, when you're doing sort of like a, opposite forces kind of deal, or if you're in something like Vrikshasana tree pose and all of your weight is on one leg, gripping kind of helps take some of that pressure off and keep you more centered. So now that we've learned about the feet, stand up nice and tall, release the hands down to the side for mountain pose Tadasana. On our inhale, keep everything in the body the same. Pull the ribs in towards the spine, round the tailbone in slightly or forward slightly, and then lift the arms up into the air for Urdhva upward facing hand posture. So you can keep your hands together or you can keep them separate as you lean back slightly. So pull the fingertips up to the ceiling and then back. So there's just a gentle back bend in here. You can lift your gaze up as well if you like. On your exhale, bring the hands through the heart as you hinge at the hips, bending forward, coming to Uttanasana forward fold with your hands on your shins, or if you would like to try for a Pada Hastasana, you can keep your legs straight as you drop your hands down to the feet. Pada Hastasana means foot to hand posture or hand to foot, whatever you want to go for here. Release the crown of the head down towards the mat, bend deeply into the body, hollowing out the belly as you go so you can bring your forehead closer to the knees. Feel free to move any skin out of the way. Activate through Uddiyana Bandha here to create more space for the body to fold. From here, hands down to the mat. Bring your right leg back, dropping down to the knee. Lift the chest forward. Ashwasanchalasana. This is equestrian pose or horse movement posture. And we're doing a little bit more of a traditional Surya Namaskar today. It's not the power flow that you might be used to, depending on what your experience is. So in Ashwasanchalasana, you want your hands down towards the mat. Left foot is flexed and foot is flush with the mat. Right leg goes long behind you, release to the top of the foot, and chest lifts up and forward. Gaze is also forward. Neck is relaxed. From here, hold the breath as you bring your left leg back for Phalakasana plank pose. So in this one, push your heels back actively as if there's a wall behind you. Push the mat away, activating through your Hasta Bandha. Tuck the tailbone in, pull the belly button into the spine. Hold here. As you exhale, drop the knees down to the mat first. Start to bend the elbows, keeping them tucked into the sides of the body all the way down. As your chest makes contact, keep your hips lifted. So we're in Ashtanga Namaskar here, which is 8-point salute. So we have 8 points of contact with the ground right now. We have our feet, our knees, our chest, our hands, and our chin. So our gaze is forward. Once again, because our lower back is flexed, what should we do to counter? Activate through Uddiyana Bandha here. On our inhale, push forward through the toes so that so it's kind of like a motion, like a sliding motion. You're using your hands to pull you forward. At the same time, you're using your toes to sort of push the whole body forward as well. So try to move your toes and your hands at the same time. So on our inhale, pull forward, chest slightly lifted, elbows bent and pulled into the sides of the body, but lift your chest up slightly for Bhujangasana Cobra pose. Pinch the shoulder blades in together to open through the chest. On our exhale, push the chest all the way up. Push the hips back and up for downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Take one breath here. On our inhale, gaze forward, bring the right leg forward, back for Ashwasanchalasana, left leg back. Same deal, gaze forward, chest lifted, spine elongated. Exhale, Padahastasana or Uttanasana, forward fold. Inhale, lift up, Urdhva Hastasana, upward facing hand posture. Exhale, Pranamasana, hands to the heart. So that was one half. We did the right side of the body. Now we're going to do the left. Inhale, Urdhva Hastasana, upward facing hand posture. Exhale, Uttanasana or Padahastasana. Reactivate through your Ujjayi breath here, not to really generate heat or sweat, but just to keep the body in tune with the breath. Inhale, left leg back this time. Right knee forward, Ashwasanchalasana. Hold the breath, bring the right leg back for Balakasana, plank pose. Push back through those heels. Exhale, Ashtanga Namaskar, drop the knees, hips lifted, drop the chest. Pull your elbows in, rest on the chin. Inhale, pull forward, Bhujangasana, Cobra pose. Exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Take one breath cycle here. Inhale, left leg forward. Exhale, Padahastasana. Inhale, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, Pranamasana, hands to the heart. All right, that was one cycle all the way through. We're going to do one more cycle just like that with a little bit more silence in between each posture so you can really get into the meditative quality of this flow. Tap back into your breath. Use all the bandhas we've learned. Hasta bandha, Jalandhara bandha, chin bind. Uddiyana bandha, abdominal bind. Pada bandha, foot bind. Inhale, Tadasana. Exhale, Pranamasana, hands to the heart. Inhale, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, Padahastasana. Inhale, Ashwasanchalasana, right leg back. Exhale, Balakasana, plank. Continue down, Ashtanga Namaskar. Knees, chest, hands, chin. Inhale, Bhujangasana. Exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Inhale, Ashwasanchalasana, right leg forward. Exhale, Padahastasana. Inhale, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, Pranamasana. Inhale, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, Padahastasana. Inhale, Ashwasanchalasana, left leg back. Hold the breath, Balakasana. Exhale, Ashtanga Namaskar. Inhale, Bhujangasana. Exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Inhale, Ashwasanchalasana, left leg forward. Exhale, Pada Hastasana. Inhale, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, Pranamasana. Release the hands down to the sides. So hopefully you are able to get into a little bit of a meditative flow with that version of Surya Namaskar. So we're going to move a little bit deeper into the hips now and get into some long holds. So inhale, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, bow forward, Pada Hastasana. From here, walk your hands a little bit wider than your shoulders. You can slightly turn the feet out if you like as well. Give yourself like a really nice wide berth here. Our hips are all very different. And then go ahead and drop the hips down to the mat for Malasana, garland pose. So for some, the ankles and the heels will touch, not the ankles, the heels will touch the mat. For others, it won't. That's okay. You can adjust the width of your feet, the spacing of your feet, to make this feel a bit more comfortable. Or it's also okay if your heels are just lifted. You can also use balled up socks, a towel, anything rolled up underneath your feet to give you that sense of connectedness with the earth and that stability that can bring. In terms of our hands, bring your hands to Anjali Mudra, prayer position, all 5 fingers to touch in front of the chest. Bring the elbows to the insides of the knees and push them away actively so that your hands are now down at your chest level. From here, sit the spine up nice and tall, pulling the tailbone forward slightly rather than sticking it back. And also, just because we're not standing doesn't mean we're not using our Pada Bandha. Also activate your foot bind here, gripping underneath the toes, gripping underneath the soles of the feet to balance yourself on earth. As you inhale, reach up through the crown of the head, finding extension in the spine. As you exhale, push your elbows into your knees and your knees into your elbows to engage through your hip joint. With each inhale, sit the spine up taller. And with each exhale, let the root of your body, the bottom of your tailbone, get heavy, almost like you're drawing it down towards the earth. One more cycle of breath. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale. On your exhale, plant the hands back on the mat. Bring your hips up towards the ceiling for Pada Hastasana, forward fold. From here, just, actually, no, let's go through the full flow. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana, halfway lift. Plant the hands on your shins, lift the crown of the head forward. Engage through your belly button here, drawing it to the spine. Pull your shoulder blades in together to open through your chest. Direct your gaze forward. Exhale, release your hands down to the mat, step back, plank pose, and either drop to your knees or you can move through Chaturanga Dandasana by keeping your knees lifted as you shift the weight forward over your wrists. Bend down, elbows into the sides of the body. Inhale, pull through for either Bhujangasana or upward facing dog. The difference between these two, Bhujangasana, our chest is lower, elbows are pulled into the sides of the body. You're down on your thighs. For Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, upward facing dog, your hands are extended. The chest is more elevated off the ground. There's a little bit more of a deeper bend in your lower back, which is why it's very important to engage through your Uddiyana Bandha here. And your thighs can also be lifted off the mat by pushing down into the tops of your feet, just depending on the intensity level that you want. Exhale, push back downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. On your inhale, lift your right leg high, stretching all the way from your fingertips through your toes. On your exhale, draw the knee into the chest first, pulling it both forward and up into the body. Then start to shift your weight so that your shoulders are over your wrists. And then drop the foot behind the right palm for Anjaneyasana low lunge. Let's hold here for just a moment. Get used to this motion. We're starting to get into some hip flexor movement here. So keep your back toes engaged, your back heel lifted. Draw the spine long. So your back heel is pulling you back, but the crown of your head is pulling you forward. So there's opposing forces happening here. And your center of gravity is somewhere along the midline of the body right now. So try to really envision yourself being pulled in two opposite directions, but what is pulling you back together is your thigh muscles on both legs. So if you really grip the mat underneath your toes, you'll start to feel activation through the inside of your left thigh and through the inside of your right thigh here to pull you back into the center. One more deep inhale and exhale here. From here, you can drop your right knee down to the mat. Walk your right palm, drop your left knee down to the mat. Bring your right palm to the inside of your right foot. Sort of walk your foot out to the side of the mat. We're preparing here for Uttan Pristhasana, also known as lizard pose, which is a great stretch for the front of the hip joint. So you can stay right here. You can release down to the top of your left leg or your left foot. Hands directly under the shoulders. Push the mat away, lift the spine up, reaching through the crown of the head. And this is perfect right here if you want to feel sensation through the front of the left hip joint. If you would like a deeper sensation, you can drop down to your forearms. And if you do so, your right leg, your right knee might open out to the side more, which is also fine. Just let the inside of your foot peel off the mat. Don't try to fight that. You can hold here. You can also release down to your forehead if you like. I'm good up here. Also, if your knee is sensitive, use a towel or you can roll in the side of your mat for a little bit more cushion. Let's take a few more deep breaths here. Re-engage through our box breathing if you like. You can use the quality of breath technique or just good old Ujjayi breath. This is a great one to use your detox breath in because it's really exposing all the tissues and all the joints. So may as well get in there with the heat. Also tap back into that tension release technique that we talked about. Use your breath to direct your awareness to any tight spots in the body. One at a time, you don't need to get them all. And when you find your awareness there, release, give it permission. Maybe even use a nice visual of something disintegrating. You can envision that as tension and just imagine it falling apart. One more breath. When you're ready, start to wiggle your right foot over to the left-hand side of the mat to right next to your left hand, and then drop the knee down. We're preparing now for Ardha Kapotasana, half pigeon. So at this point, your right knee is at the right side of the mat. Your right foot is over to the left side, just behind your left hand. Same deal, you can stay right here, push the mat away, keep your spine nice and tall for an active half pigeon. Also check behind you that your left leg is parallel to the mat, released to the top of the foot. If you would like a deeper sensation, so this time last time we got activation to the front of the left hip joint. Using the same side of the body, we're now getting into the back of the right hip joint. So if this is good, stay here. If you want a deeper sensation, release down to your forearms and you can hold here for a few breaths or down to the forehead as well. One more breath. From wherever you are, go ahead and unravel, come back to active pigeon. Tuck your back toes, bring your right leg back for downward facing dog. Inhale, lift your left leg high, stretching all the way from the fingertips to the toes. Keep that left hip facing down to the mat. On your exhale, round the knee into the body, pulling it up into the chest. Shift the weight forward so your shoulders are over your wrists. And then drop the left foot behind the left palm, holding here just for a moment in Anjaneyasana low lunge. Just feeling what it feels like on this side as well. Push your right heel back, draw your left knee forward. Push the mat away and sit your spine up nice and tall. And our last move is to release. This is a hard one. Release the right hip joint down towards the mat. There is a very good reason that we might want to keep that butt kind of lifted in the air here. But as we drop the hip joint down towards the mat is where we start to get some of that juicy opening. But again, listen to your body, calibrate your movement accordingly. Go ahead and drop the right knee down to the mat, release to the top of the foot. Wiggle the left foot over to the edge of the mat, bringing your left hand onto the inside of your leg in the process. Uttan Pristhasana once more on the left-hand side. Push the mat away, reach the spine, the crown of the head up to the ceiling, lengthening. You can hold right here. If you want more sensation, drop down to your forearms or to your forehead. Let's hold here for a few breaths. This is a really great pose to observe the constant balance of sthira and sukha in the body. So there's so much effort in this pose because it's a very intense posture. Puts a lot of pressure on some very sensitive places in the body. But at the same time, we can find a lot of ease when we use our breath to release that tension, at least wherever we're able to. So it's a good exercise for your awareness and for using your mind to play an active role in comfort for yourself. So a lot of the time we hold on to tension unnecessarily because it's sort of preemptive protection. So just explore those edges, explore those boundaries, and figure out where you can find a little bit more sukha. All right, from here, push the hips back slightly, start to walk your left foot over to the opposite right side of the mat. Drop the knee down to the left-hand side of the mat. Check behind you, your right shoulder, that your right leg is parallel, and release to the top of the foot. You want your hips even. I forgot to mention this on the other side, but the objective here is you don't need to have your shin parallel to the top of the mat. Your foot can be pulled in all the way to the body so that your shin makes sort of a 45-degree angle. Wherever it depends on your hip flexibility, but the objective is that both your hips should be evenly spaced from the mat. If you think of like a vertical height from the mat to your hip, you don't want to be leaned all the way down on your left hip with your right hip peeled up. If that's the case, bring your heel closer down towards the groin and then try to readjust your hips. When your hips are even, stay here in Ardha Kapotasana or release down to your forearms, holding here for a few breaths. All right, at the bottom of that last exhale, go ahead and push yourself up, if you weren't already here, to active pigeon. Come up onto your right toes, Push the left leg back, coming to downward facing dog one more time. Bend the knees, sit the hips back a little bit, come back to straight legs. Once again, bend the knees out wide, drop the hips back. Just kind of go through this active downward dog squat a few times just to gently reawaken the hips. Ask for a little forgiveness. And when you're ready, drop the knees down to the mat. Sit the hips down. Virabhadrasana, lightning bolt pose. When you're ready, bring the feet out in front of you. Flexing at the feet, pull the toes back towards the face for Dandasana staff pose. Sit the spine up nice and tall, reaching all the way through the crown of the head. Inhale, float the arms up. On your exhale, reach forward through your fingertips. So lead with the chest and the fingers. Try not to curve through the spine. The spine should be the last thing to give here. Reach forward through the fingers, through the crown of the head. And when you've reached your threshold, then go ahead and release and soften everything down towards the earth. And just let everything land where it does naturally. It might grip the toes, it might rest on the shins, might rest on the hips. Let your spine round down, release the crown of the head, soften the entire body. From here, sit up nice and tall. Reach the fingertips forward. We're gonna do our last sort of practice in opposing forces. Keep your toes flexed, reach forward through your fingertips, pull the belly button into the spine as you sort of round yourself softly down to the mat. Release all the way down. We might go just a couple minutes over. If you need to leave, feel free. Last posture I'd love for us to do before we close out, Supta Matsyasana, which is reclined Lord of the Fishes. So inhale, bend the right knee into the chest. Give it a nice squeeze. Maybe point the toe. On your exhale, use your left hand over the right knee, so across the body, to draw the knee over to the left-hand side. Keep the hand over the knee to traction the weight down to the mat as you turn your gaze to the right, arm to follow for a nice spinal twist. With each exhale, release tension and hold in the back, in the knee, in the leg. Letting gravity accentuate this twist. Release the hold in your hand, in your neck, in the chest, in the belly, in the thighs, and in the toes. Gently unravel yourself, bringing your knee back into your chest at center. And switch out the legs, letting the right leg go long, draw the left knee into the chest for a quick squeeze, point through the toe. This time use your right hand over the left across the body to draw it diagonally with your left knee dropping down towards the right. Again, keep your right hand on top of the knee to help traction and sort of solidify that twist as your gaze and left hand go over to the left. Again, use your exhales wisely here to release tension and hold, starting from the neck, through the shoulders, the hips, the chest, the thighs, the hands, the fingers, and the toes. Roll back to center, bringing both knees into the chest. Round up, giving yourself a quick hug. Exhale, release the legs down to the mat for Shavasana, corpse pose. We're a little out of time today, so I'm going to cut it short, but if you can, stay here as long as you'd like to. Corpse pose is an excellent asana to practice pratyahara in, which is the withdrawal of the senses. It's a pose that sort of draws on this question of both, I guess, the sort of prevalence of Shiva and Shakti energy in the body, which is sort of the destructive and creative forces, masculine and feminine. And really just asking which came first and which is more necessary for you right now. Can we create out of destruction? Do we need to destroy anything so that we can create? And on a less existential level, you can also just start to quieten the senses. This is where those warm, tingly feelings start to take over at the end of asana practice. And I encourage you to sit with that. Let it grow and take over your whole body, so that, for me personally, it feels like the static on a TV screen that's not quite working, but in a good way. From here, go ahead and roll onto your favorite side for a brief pause. Use both hands to push yourself up to a seat. And if you have extra time now, I would highly recommend that you do some meditation. You can just sit right here in Sukhasana, just have your hands resting in your lap. Just close the eyes and just sink into this movement. It's always better to meditate after you've completed your asana practice, because you have sort of gotten rid of any excess physical energy in the body and your mind can sort of settle in. So this is a good time for that. If not, I'll go ahead and conclude practice today. Thank you all so much for joining me. It was so lovely to have you all here.